Hey everybody, I hope that you are enjoying the start to your summer break. I hope that you came to church yesterday and you were thankful to be back with everybody just like we were. I hope soon that we'll be able to have Bible class again, but for now it's still good to be able to teach you in this way and to be able to do this together, and I hope that you're still enjoying it at home and doing these Bible lessons with me. We're going to talk about a pretty cool story today from the book of Acts. So if you want to turn there, we're going to be in the book of Acts in chapter 12. And the book of Acts is a pretty cool book because this is after Jesus has been raised from the dead and he has come back to see his disciples and he's told them a few more things before he goes back into heaven to live with God. And then he sends his disciples out and he tells his disciples, it's time for you to go and to do what I've been asking you to do since we've been traveling these years and teach people about me. Because I can't be here to do it anymore, it's time for you to do it. So his disciples and all these other people are going out and talking and preaching about Jesus, and they're moving from town to town. And that's awesome, and the church is growing and all these people are believing, and so the church is spreading and people are becoming Christians, and it's a cool book to see all of that. But just like when Jesus was alive, not everybody's excited about this new way to think and about this new way of living and about these new laws and new rules and about all these Christianity things. And so they're making people upset just like Jesus did. And people are mad about them, and they're starting to do things to try and stop them. And so in chapter 12 we start reading about a king named Herod, and he's already unfortunately had some people put to death. He's killed some people that are telling people about Jesus. And so he's obviously looking for people to tell them to stop doing this. And he gets a hold of Peter, and he has Peter put in prison. And so we're going to pick up in verse 3. He said, and when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. The Jews were upset that all of these people were going around and telling people that Jesus was the Son of God and that he was here to start this new kingdom, and they didn't like it. And so Herod has Peter arrested. This was during the days of unleavened bread. And when they seized him and put him in prison, delivering over to him 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. So Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. So even though Peter's in prison and they're guarding him with 4 squads of soldiers, they wanted this man to stay in prison. People were praying for him and trying to get him help to get out of there so he could keep doing God's word. But this is what I want to talk about. We pick up in verse 6. We see something really cool happen to Peter in prison, and that's where our lesson is going to come from today. So we're going to start reading that and talking about it. It says this. Now when Herod was about to bring him out, on that very night, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and sentries before the door were guarding the prison. So not only did they have Peter chained and in prison, they had him in between 2 people that were guarding him, and there were people outside the doors waiting to make sure that he didn't get out. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to him, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him, saying, Get up quickly, and the chains fell off his hands. So all of a sudden an angel appears in Peter's cell, and he hits him in the side and he says, Get up, and the chains just fall off. And I don't know how many of you have looked at chains, but they're strong. They can't even hardly break with tools, and they just fall off of Peter, so that's pretty cool. And the angel said, Dress yourself and put on your sandals. And he did. And he said to him, Wrap your cloak around you and follow me. And he went out and he followed him. He did not know what was being done by the angel was real, but he thought he was seeing a vision. This was so strange to Peter that even though he believed in God and he trusted God and he knew people were praying for him, all this seemed so crazy that he didn't even think it was real that an angel was helping him get out of prison. When they passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading the city. And it opened for them on its own accord, and they went out and they went along the street, and immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the angel of the Lord was sent and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all the people that were expecting it." So the angel leads Peter out of prison and out of the city, and then he leaves him. And Peter realizes that this happened because the Lord has sent this angel to help him. So picking up in verse 12, he said, "When he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose other name was Mark, where people were gathered together and were praying. And he knocked on the door of the gateway, and the servant named Rhoda came and answered. Recognizing Peter's voice, in her joy, she did not open the gate, but ran in and reported that Peter was standing in the gate. She was so excited that she forgot to open the gate for Peter. She just ran inside and told everybody that he was there. And they said to her, 'You are crazy.' But she kept insisting that it was so, and they kept saying, 'It is an angel.' Even though they were praying to God and trying to ask God to help him get Peter out of prison, they didn't even think it was possible that Peter could be out of prison and standing outside the gate. They told the little girl that she was crazy. So picking up in verse 16, it says, "But Peter continued knocking, and when they opened, they saw him and were amazed. But motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he described to them how the Lord had brought him out of prison. And he said, 'Tell these things to James and the brothers.' Then he departed and went to another place. Now when the day came, there was no little disturbance among the soldiers over what had happened to Peter. After Herod had searched for him and did not find him, he examined the guards and ordered that they should be put to death. They went down from Judah and Caesarea and spent time there." So Herod's pretty upset that Peter has been let out of prison, and he thinks that his guards had something to do with him. So he has them punished because he thinks that they let him out of prison when really it was a miracle. And God had sent this angel to let Peter out of prison. And Peter goes to the house of Mary to see all these people who were praying for his escape, and they don't even believe that it could be true. But when they finally see Peter, they realize that he is out of prison and that the Lord has helped him get out. And they are so excited, and they make sure to tell these people so that they can go to other places and tell them what the Lord has done. And I think that this is such a cool story because it shows us a couple different things, and I want those to be our lessons to learn from this story about Peter escaping from prison. The first one I want us to learn is this, that nothing is impossible for God. And the Bible is full of all kinds of stories about God doing things that for nobody else, for no human, would even be close to possible. But we read all the time, and especially in this story, about how nothing at all is impossible for God. Even the people that were praying for God, even the people that trusted God to help get Peter out of prison, did not think that he could just walk out of prison without being harmed, which is what he did. But because God sent an angel, because God protected Peter with this angel, because he was looking out for Peter, we find out that nothing is impossible and that God can do anything. And that we should always make sure that we understand that God can do anything that he needs us to, or that God can do anything he wants to. And I think this is a cool story that shows us that, because I'm sure if I were Peter and I got put in prison, I don't think I would think it was possible either for God to break me out. And even though God doesn't do those kinds of things anymore, we still have to understand that God is as powerful as anything, and he's more powerful than everything. And so he still has all this power to do all of these things. The second lesson, and the second thing I want us to think about from this cool story about Peter, is that we can't let anything stop us from telling people about God. We know if we keep reading the book of Acts, and even down in verse 17, we learn that Peter didn't stop preaching and teaching about Jesus just because he was thrown in prison. When he got out of prison And when he could travel again to another city after he felt safe, he still went on preaching. He still went on telling people about God and about how Jesus came to save everybody. And that's an important lesson for us to learn. It's easy sometimes, especially when we're young, to not want to tell people about Bible class or about church or about Jesus and how much He loves us. But we have to remember that we can't let anything stop us from telling people how good and how powerful and how awesome that God is. And even though there are lots of verses in the Bible and lots of stories in the Bible about Peter or Paul, even Jesus and His disciples, they get punished and they get made fun of and they get embarrassed about telling people about Jesus, and they get thrown into prison, and they have all these things that happen to them that may not be so fun, but they don't let it stop them from telling everybody about Jesus that they can. And I hope from this story that we can think about that too. Maybe it's inviting someone to Bible class, or telling them something cool that you've prayed for that maybe God has let you do, or that God has done for you. We can't let anything stop us from telling people about God, even though it's tough sometimes, and even though it can be kind of weird sometimes. We have to make sure that we're doing that because that's what God would want us to do. So I think that these are cool things that we can learn from this pretty neat story about breaking out of prison. I know that we don't see people do that much now, and we certainly don't see people do it with an angel. But it's cool how the Lord uses this thing, this miracle, to not only rescue one of the people that's trying to tell them about Jesus, but to show us so many things about how nothing is impossible for God, and about how even when bad things happen, we still have to try and tell people about Jesus and do the things that He would want us to do. I still hope to see you very soon. I hope that you've enjoyed this lesson.